Welcome back to our Spider-Man Ultimate Magic the Gathering Deckcrafting series. Today, we're embracing one of Magic's most iconic archetypes, Goblins. This one features Spider-Man's greatest nemesis, the Green Goblin. In this episode, we'll craft a story-driven standard deck exploring how the Spider-Man set captures Norman Osborn's relentless aggression, chaotic inventions, and explosive tactics through mechanics, flavor, and gameplay. Then, once the deck is complete, we'll have the Green Goblin challenge our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in a head-to-head battle to see which character prevails. So, let's go unleash some Goblin Mayhem. The deck box is built from two Game-Genic 100-card Sidekick XLs with the skin in green and the hood purple. Since Game-Genic has the official license for Spider-Man, I'm definitely running the matte Game-Genic Green Goblin card sleeves. The big bad for this deck is Norman Osborn, who transforms into the Green Goblin. The secondary villain is Hobgoblin Mantled Marauder. It takes 3 colors to transform Norman Osborn into the Green Goblin, so we're going to need to be a 3-color deck. Islands, swamps, and mountains. For non-basic lands, we're choosing Oscorp Industries, which is tricolor and has Mayhem, and dual-color Ominous Asylum with Surveil 1. The deck will run 3 Norman Osborns and 3 Hobgoblins. Norman starts off as an inexpensive 1/1 human scientist villain who can't be blocked. And when he deals combat damage to a player, he connives. Which means you'll draw a card and then discard a card, and if you discard a non-land card, he gets a +1/+1 counter. And these will stay on him when he transforms into the Green Goblin. It'll take 4 mana to do so, 1 colorless, 1 island, 1 swamp, and 1 mountain. You can also cast the Green Goblin for this cost without having to transform from Norman Osborn. So you'd be bringing out a 3/3 with Flying and Menace, and it reduces your cost of playing cards from the graveyard, like with Mayhem, by 2 colorless. Which means most of the cards in this deck will be able to be played from the graveyard with just 1 or 2 colored mana. And check this out, it has Goblin Formula, which basically gives Mayhem to all the cards that you've been discarding, so you can play them from the graveyard, and even at a more economical cost than if you played them from your hand. Hobgoblin is a 1/2 villain with Flying and Haste, and when you discard a card, like with Connive, his power increases by 2. For spells in the 1-drop category, we start with Pumpkin Bombardment, which is conveniently 2 color, but with an extra cost. You may have to discard a card, but with the Green Goblin on the battlefield, that's not much of a detriment. We also have another removal, Fatal Push, which is only 1 swamp. You play that instant speed, so it's pretty nasty, and it can target enemies like Peter Parker, or the people he loves, like Gwen Stacy, or Aunt May. Either way, it's going to be a traumatic event for Peter. And then for 2 mana, we have Pumpkin Bombs, which is an artifact that comes from the Scene box. You tap it to discard 2 cards, which is okay, to draw 3 cards. And then you put a fuse counter on it, and then it deals damage equal to the number of fuse counters to target opponent, and then they gain control of it. I'm more inclined to just keep this in my commander deck so my opponents can play hot potato with it. Okay, and then moving on, we have Unstable Experiment. It's an instant. Target player draws a card, and then up to 1 creature that you control connives. And then Shadow of the Goblin, it's an enchantment with Unreliable Visions. At the beginning of your first main phase, discard a card. And then it has Unreliable Visions, where this enchantment does 1 damage to each opponent whenever you play a land or a spell from anywhere other than your hand. So every turn, you discard a card, and if you have the Green Goblin in play, then you can play them from the graveyard for the Mayhem cost, and you do 1 damage to each opponent. Nice, huh? I'll be including this in my commander deck as well. The next 2-drop is Spider-Man No More, which basically nerfs another creature, turning them into a 1/1 citizen with Defender and no other abilities. If they had abilities, they don't anymore. Rocket-powered Goblin Glider is a 3-mana artifact equipment. If you play it from the graveyard, you can immediately attach it to a creature. You don't have to pay the equip cost, but it will beef up the creature and give it Flying and Haste. Death of Gwen Stacy is a 3-step enchantment saga. Step 1, destroy target creature. Step 2, each player may discard a card. If they don't, they lose 3 life. And step 3 is exile any number of target graveyards. Probably don't do that to yourself. Now for 3-drop creatures, we have Ultimate Green Goblin. Since he doesn't already have flying, you might want to put the Goblin Glider on him. And he's dual color, so you shouldn't have any trouble casting him. But once he enters, every turn you're going to be discarding a card and exchanging it for a treasure token. And it has Mayhem, so it's going to be one of the cards that you want to discard. For additional Goblin-themed removals, you could add Saw in Half, which destroys a target creature and then makes 2 copies of that creature, each with half as much power and toughness. I don't think I really need this here. I could just put it in my commander deck or my clone and chameleon deck. Since I need a 4-drop card, Green Goblin Nemesis fits really well here. He's another one of those scene box cards. Obviously there's no better deck for this since all of the creatures in this deck are goblins, and every time I discard a card, one of those goblins gets +1/+1. And then also for 4 mana, we have Oscorp Research Team. If you need defense, it's a 1/5 blocker, and you can pay 7 to draw cards. In the 5 slot, we have Green Goblin Revenant. It's a 3/3 with flying and death touch, and whenever it attacks, I discard a card. And then I draw a card for each card I've discarded this turn. And then lastly, we have Raging Goblinoids. They're a 5/4 with haste and mayhem. So now we have our Green Goblin deck, and we have our Spider-Man deck, so how about a showdown? Let's pit the 2 decks against each other and see which one wins out.
You've spun your last web, Spider-Man.
Whoa, hang on there, Goblin. We haven't even rolled dice. Dice is rolled, Goblin goes first. Both players draw 7, no mulligans. Goblin plays Oscorp Industries, it enters tapped. Spidey draws and plays a Plains, taps it, and plays Peter Parker's camera. It enters with 3 film counters. Goblin's turn. Villain draws and plays an island, taps their mana, and Norman Osborn enters. Spidey's turn now, and he lays down a mountain. He will tap all this land, and Peter Parker will enter. When Peter enters, he brings in a 2/1 spider creature token with reach. He's going to take a picture of this and tap his camera, spending 1 film counter to copy the triggered activated ability, and puts out another 2/1 spider with reach. Goblin draws for turn and plays a swamp, and casts Pumpkin Bombardment on a spider. It does 3 damage for 3 mana. Norman's going to attack, and he can't be blocked. He does combat damage, and so he connives. Goblin draws a card, and discards a card. And Norman gets +1/+1. Norman attacks, so he's tapped. End of turn. Player draws a card, and attacks with his spider, dealing 2 damage. Opponent draws a card, and plays a mountain. And casts Green Goblin Nemesis. When Norman attacks and deals combat damage, he'll connive, discarding a card, and then Green Goblin Nemesis will give a creature a +1/+1 token. He's discarded Unstable Experiment. Norman gets a +1/+1 counter from connive, and then Green Goblin Nemesis will get the other +1/+1 counter. Player draws a card, can't play anything, and passes. So it's the opponent's turn, they draw a card, and then they transform Norman Osborn into Green Goblin, and he keeps the +1/+1 counters.
MJ and I,
And then both creatures attack.
hell of a time.
Defending player plays Strength of Will. The spider token becomes indestructible, absorbing all damage from Green Goblin, and converts the damage into +1/+1 counters, gaining +4/+4. He becomes a 6/5 spider with reach. Player then draws a card, plays a Plains, taps 3 mana to play Kapow. The spider gets another +1/+1 token, and then it fights Green Goblin head on. Peter, don't tell Harry. Villain draws and plays an island, and then taps their mana to play Green Goblin Revenant.
Because you never know when some lunatic will come along with a sadistic choice.
He taps all of his mana and plays Spider-Man Peter Parker. Villain takes their turn and draws, and plays the enchantment Death of Gwen Stacy. It's a saga, so it enters on step 1, destroying target creature. So Spider token gets removed. Then Villain plays another Pumpkin Bombardment, but doesn't have enough mana, so they'll have to discard a card. They'll discard Green Goblin's Rocket-Powered Glider. Since a card was discarded, a creature will get +1/+1, and Peter Parker is out for the count and goes to the graveyard. Player draws and plays Vibrant Cityscape, taps it, they'll look in their library for a basic land and then shuffle the library. The land is an island and it'll enter tapped. Then they'll tap 4 of their mana and play Daily Bugle of Reporters, then they'll choose one of 2 triggered abilities, Puff Piece or Investigative Journalism. They'll choose the latter and bring back Peter Parker. End of turn. So Death of Gwen Stacy now moves to step 2. Each player discards a card or loses 3 life. Villain will take 3 life, and player will discard J. Jonah Jameson. And then they tap 3 mana and play another Death of Gwen Stacy. It's not a legendary, so they can play it, and destroy Spider-Man Peter Parker. Then they'll attack with both creatures. Since Green Goblin Revenant is attacking, they'll discard a card, and then they'll draw a card for every card discarded this turn. They discard Shadow of the Goblin, and since they only discarded 1 card, they'll draw 1 card. And then Green Goblin Nemesis will get another +1/+1 counter. Defending player will now take 9 damage, going from 12 down to 3 life. Now's a good time for Spider-Man to make a wisecrack. They'll draw a card, and then they'll play Peter Parker again, but this time they're going to tap 2 extra mana, 1 of each color, to cast him directly, transformed as the Amazing Spider-Man. But will it be enough? He'll tap another Plains to cast another flying creature, City Pigeon, but it's just a 1/1. The first Death of Gwen Stacy now goes to step 3, and our hero will exile their graveyard. The second one will go to step 2, and both sides will discard a card. Secret Identity and Shadow of the Goblin again. Since the villain discarded a card, Nemesis will give the Revenant a +1/+1 counter. They'll then take turn, draw a card, tap 4 mana, and then replay Green Goblin. So now Spider-Man has to deal with Green Goblin 3 different ways. Nemesis and Revenant will attack, so they'll draw a card. And Spider-Man and the Pigeon will make a heroic effort to block, and they'll both go to the graveyard. Thanks, hot dog eating pigeon. But now with no flying creatures to block, who's gonna save New York City? Let's see. For 5 mana, Spider-Man sneaks back in, swinging a Steel Wrecking Ball. It's an artifact, so it'll stay on the battlefield, and it'll swing for 5 damage to Green Goblin Revenant. Peter's gonna take another picture, sacrificing 1 more film, to copy the artifact's ability and do another 5 damage to Green Goblin Nemesis. The first Death of Gwen Stacy enchantment was exhausted at the end of the last turn, so that'll go to the graveyard. And then the second Death of Gwen Stacy will go to step 3, and then the opposing player will exile their graveyard again. Then the opponent will draw a card, tap 3 mana and play Ultimate Green Goblin. So we're now in the Ultimate Spider-Man universe on Earth 1610. In that universe, Spider-Man dies, and then Miles Morales is motivated to take up the mantle and become the new Ultimate Spider-Man, or I should say a different Ultimate Spider-Man. But Green Goblin will swing for 3 with Menace, can't be blocked, and that's game. But before we end, let's look at some more mechanics from these decks. If you're using Shadow of the Goblin or Ultimate Goblin to discard a card at the beginning of every turn, and you have Green Goblin on the battlefield that allow you to play those cards with Mayhem as they're discarded, then you'll do fun things like discarding your rocket-powered glider, which you can play for 2 less mana, or if you discard an Ultimate Green Goblin, you'll only have to pay 1 mana to play that card. Let's look at a scenario on the other side where we have a creature with either web shooters or a spider suit or both equipped. If we play the enchantment aura with great power and attach it to that creature, it gets +2/+2 for each equipment or aura attached to it. So +2/+2 for itself and another +2/+2 for web shooters. Let's take Amazing Spider-Man. Now you have an 8/8 creature that can absorb all damage done to you. If it also has Spider Suit, then it's an 11/11. So even if your opponent has Green Goblin with Flying and Menace and the rocket-powered glider attached, you can absorb all the damage and you won't even have to block. Now let's play an ideal setup that's not too uncommon. First, for 1 planes, you can play Aunt May, so that on your next turn you could spend 2 mana to play Peter Parker, who enters with a 2/1 creature spider token. So Aunt May will give you 2 life and a +1/+1 counter on your spider. Then on your 3rd turn you could play Mary Jane for 2, gaining 1 more life when she enters, and then spend your last mana on a radioactive spider, gaining another life and a +1/+1 counter on it. So by the end of turn 3, you could do 2 damage to your opponent, you can gain 4 life, and you'll have 5 creatures with +1/+1 counters on 2 of them. By turn 4, you could potentially transform Peter Parker into Amazing Spider-Man. That's certainly a great way to start the game. Thank you for watching the 2nd episode. Let us know in the comments if you've made any alterations to Goblin Mayhem and if you found any powerful combinations. But we still have a lot of decks to craft, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications. Before we visit Miles and Gwen in the Spider-Verse, we're crafting 2 more decks with my favorite villains. First, we'll tinker with some artifacts with Doc Ock, and then we'll employ some powerful illusions and elements to overpower the spiders. So stay tuned for episodes 3 and 4. Ultimate Magic is Ultimate Deckcrafting.